Mount Mayon, situated roughly 300 kilometers to the southeast of the Philippine capital Manila, has earned a reputation as one of the world's most active and potentially dangerous volcanoes. In early January 2026, it again demonstrated why, forcing the authorities to order the emergency evacuation of nearly 3,500 inhabitants living in its shadow. When I began looking over the figures and reports issued in recent days about Mayon's behavior, I was struck by just how worrying the patterns were. The volcano is not merely rumbling in a general sense. It is exhibiting a suite of signals that scientists recognize from previous eruptions. And those signals are anything but reassuring. On the afternoon of 6th January 2026, at 13:20 local time, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, commonly referred to by its acronym, Phivolcs, announced that it had raised Mayon's alert status to level 3. In Phivolcs terminology, an alert level 3 indicates that there is a high likelihood of a hazardous eruption occurring, and it is generally accompanied by warnings for communities on the slopes to prepare for evacuation. In the days since that announcement, the picture emerging from Mayon has become steadily clearer. For context, the mountain lies within Albay Province in the northeastern portion of the Philippine archipelago. Anyone who has seen drawings of a textbook volcano with a near-perfect conical outline would find a real-life counterpart in Mayon. Rising to 2,462 meters above sea level, just over 8,000 feet for those who use imperial units, it is a striking landmark and has long been a well-known tourist destination because of its almost symmetrical shape. That aesthetic appeal can be deceptive, however. Mayon holds the distinction of being the most active volcano in the Philippines, with 54 eruptions on record since 1616. Now, for the second time in less than 2 years, it is again exhibiting behavior that underscores its volatility. At present, the mountain's summit hosts a growing lava dome, and that dome is beginning to collapse under its own weight. The lava being extruded at the crater is exceptionally viscous. Rather than flowing freely like water, it accumulates and creates a sort of cap on the vent. This plug is inherently unstable. When portions of it break off, the result can be dramatic. During the latest monitoring period, scientists documented 100 pyroclastic density currents, often abbreviated as PDCs, within a 24-hour span. These currents, described locally as US, behave like supersonic avalanches composed of searing gas, ash, and fragments of rock. They cascade down the flanks at velocities that exceed 100 kilometers per hour, speeds that make it utterly impossible for anyone in their path to outrun them. Being caught by one would almost certainly be fatal. Other measurements underscore the increase in activity. Between the 1st of January and the early days of the second week of 2026, Phivolcs recorded 346 rockfall events and 4 volcanic earthquakes beneath Mayon. To appreciate how significant that is, consider the preceding 2 months. From November through the end of December 2025, there were 599 rockfalls in total. In less than a week in January, the volcano produced more than half as many rockfalls as it had in the prior 2 months combined, a clear indication of escalation. During a press briefing, Phivolcs director Dr. Teresito Bacolcol, a volcanologist who has spent decades studying Philippine volcanoes, explained that each of these rockfall events typically lasted 1 to 5 minutes. The falling debris consisted of lava fragments and blocks that traveled up to 1 kilometer down the steep southern flank of the volcano. These rockfalls are not composed of cold stones tumbling because of gravity alone. They are incandescent, so hot that they glow an orange-red at night. Observers at safe distances can see the glow from many kilometers away, which tells us the material is fresh from the interior and still at temperatures that may surpass 1,000 degrees Celsius. There were additional visual clues. On Tuesday, 7th January, Phivolcs remote cameras captured images of a bright crater glow between 18:36 and 19 hours in the evening. The pictures show an incandescent lava dome at the summit with recently ejected material still glowing brightly. A day earlier, on the afternoon of Monday, 6th January at 12:26, pyroclastic density currents began to race downslope when parts of this newly formed lava collapsed. They channeled through Bonga Gully, a well-known ravine on the volcano's southeastern flank. That particular event lasted about 3 minutes, and the deposit traveled as far as 2 kilometers from the crater. It was this escalation in PDCs that prompted further concern. The statistics collected for the 24-hour period from midnight on 8th January to midnight on 9th January paint an even more dramatic picture. During those hours, Phivolcs instruments logged 72 rockfall events, 100 pyroclastic density currents, and 2 volcanic earthquakes. To experience 100 PDCs in a single day is highly unusual and underscores the dynamic nature of the current activity. In a subsequent briefing, Dr. Maria Antonia Born, head of the Phivolcs Volcano Monitoring and Eruption Prediction Division, reminded reporters that the most probable outcome mirrors what took place in 2023, when Mayon remained at alert level 3 for 6 consecutive months. Nevertheless, she emphasized that one major difference exists this time. There is clear evidence of ground deformation. Continuous GPS measurements, electronic tilt meters, and electronic distance measurement instruments indicate that the volcano's overall structure has been swelling since June 2024, particularly on its eastern and southeastern sectors. Inflation of this sort implies that magma is actively pushing upward beneath the edifice. Dr. Born elaborated that if the present pattern of slow lava dome growth and relatively short lava flows continues, it is possible that the alert level 3 status could be sustained for many months, just as it was 3 years prior. Another diagnostic parameter is the amount of sulfur dioxide gas emitted, because SO2 flux is a good proxy for magmatic degassing. On 8th January, measurements indicated an emission rate of 195 tons per day. Although this value is not extremely high and still falls within baseline levels for Mayon, it does affirm that the volcano is continuously venting gas. Observers noted that a plume of volcanic gas rose up to about 1,000 meters, or roughly 3,000 feet, above the summit and drifted to the west-southwest. A concerning development is the onset of ashfall. On the afternoon of 8th January at 1756, Phivolcs confirmed the presence of fine ash in Barangay Busay in Daraga, and light deposits were also reported in Barangay San Francisco and Barangay Travessia in the municipality of Guinobatan. The Institute is still verifying reports from other communities around the volcano. Beyond the scientific data, the human dimension of this episode deserves careful attention. On the 7th of January, Albay Provincial Governor Noel Rosal announced that 2,289 individuals, comprising 729 families, had already been evacuated from areas deemed unsafe. These evacuations started at 16 warrants on 6th of January and involved residents of 3 villages located within the 6-kilometer radius permanent danger zone around the crater. In addition, there were around 600 people from 39 families who chose to leave voluntarily despite residing outside the mandatory zone. They either went to government-run emergency shelters or sought refuge with friends and relatives. By 06:00 on 7 January, the total number of displaced persons had risen to 3,476 across 952 families according to the Disaster Response Operations Monitoring and Information Center. The majority of these evacuations were concentrated in 6 jurisdictions: Tabaco City, from which 181 residents relocated; Malilipot, where 193 people evacuated; and the municipalities of Camalig, Ligao, Guinobatan, and Daraga. Soldiers, police officers, and disaster mitigation personnel collaborated to assist these households in moving to 13 evacuation centers operated by the government. One might understandably ask why so many people live in close proximity to such a hazardous volcano in the first place. The answer is complex and rooted in socioeconomic realities. Many Filipino families farm the fertile soils on Mayon slopes and have established homes and livelihoods there over generations. Leaving their land and source of income is not a simple choice. Governor Rosal sought to reassure displaced residents that relief supplies and basic necessities can be maintained even if the evacuation stretches on for months. He said that local government units in Albay are working closely with provincial authorities and the national government, including agencies such as the Department of Social Welfare and Development, the Department of Public Works and Highways, and others, to address concerns related to water, sanitation, and shelter in the evacuation centers. Contingency plans are in place, including the deployment of Bureau of Fire Protection units to provide water and the installation of large storage tanks in sanitary facilities. Schools in affected towns have suspended classes at all levels so that buildings can be used as shelters and to keep students out of harm's way. Strict access restrictions have been put in place. Entry into the 6-kilometer permanent danger zone around Mayon's crater is prohibited without authorization, and officials have warned against unauthorized trips into the extended danger zone beyond that radius. Monitoring of the volcano is being carried out around the clock. Phivolcs maintains constant vigilance through live video feeds at its headquarters, as well as through seismic sensors, GPS instruments, tilt meters, thermal imaging cameras, and gas monitoring equipment positioned around Mayon. Coordination among the provincial government, local municipalities, and national agencies remains active and robust. Prior evacuation drills mean that local communities are familiar with procedures, and clear, consistent communication to the public via regular bulletins helps to reduce misinformation and anxiety. After closely examining all the available data and official statements, a measured conclusion emerges. The current unrest at Mount Mayon is indeed serious and warrants close attention, but it is not a cause for undue alarm or panic. Scientists and emergency managers are applying lessons learned from past eruptions. By continuing to monitor the volcano's behavior with modern instruments, enforcing exclusion zones, and supporting evacuated communities, authorities aim to minimize risk and keep residents safe until Mayon's activity subsides.